When people think of democracy under socialism, they often scoff, labelling these socialist governments as dictatorships or authoritarian regimes. This is a gross underestimate of how democracy really was under socialism. Was democracy possible in a revolutionary state? Well, in Ethiopia, under the Derg and under the Workers' Party, the answer was a bold and resounding yes. Through land reform, political education and mass mobilization, the People's Democratic Republic of Ethiopia was built not for the elites, but for peasants, workers and youth. Democracy in the People's Democratic Republic of Ethiopia was wildly different to that of the West, but this wasn't a bad thing, given that the PDRE had no interest in adopting the bourgeois democracy we see under capitalism. The People's Democratic Republic of Ethiopia was a workers' and peasants' state, and as a result, we must understand every aspect of its socialist democracy. Unlike Western liberal democracies, the Derg and later the Workers' Party of Ethiopia believed in participatory socialist democracy. Democracy meant more than just institutions, it meant changing social relations. The concept of people's democracy was rooted in Marxist-Leninist ideals adopted to Ethiopian realities, while workers and peasants had direct power and governance. The Land Reform Proclamation in 1975 abolished landlordism and redistributed land to millions of rural farmers. Peasants were given not only land, but direct involvement in the way their communities were run through local councils known as peasant associations. These bodies acted as both village parliaments and local courts. In urban areas, COPWE committees empowered city dwellers to manage housing, pricing and education. These committees were all connected through the All Ethiopian Urban Dwellers Association. COPWE committees were vital to the democratic process of the PDRE, with every Ethiopian having the opportunity to have their voices heard. In the capital, Addis Ababa, 291 COPWEs possessed neighbourhood constituencies ranging from 3,000 to 12,000 residents each. In a 1979 speech announcing the formation of the Commission to organise the Party of the Workers of Ethiopia, Chairman Mengistu Haile-Mariam highlighted the establishment of COPWE associations. Quote, COPWE associations were organised to defend the economic and political interests of urban dwellers. Reinforcing proclamations were issued subsequently taking full account of the revolutionary process. These proclamations strengthened the organisational set-up of the peasants and urban dwellers associations. End quote. The showcase of Ethiopia's socialist democracy became evident when in 1987 Ethiopia held a nationwide referendum to approve a new socialist constitution. With debates on the constitution being held across Ethiopia, over 81% of voters approved it and the People's Democratic Republic of Ethiopia was born. The constitution guaranteed the right to freedom of speech, press, assembly and religion, alongside the right to work, housing, free education and healthcare. The referendum also founded the state's highest organ, the National Shengo, an 835-member legislature elected by universal suffrage. Under the new constitution, every adult Ethiopian had the right to vote and run for office. While the Workers' Party of Ethiopia remained the dominant party, independent candidates were allowed to contest seats, and many won. These weren't elite technocrats, they were often teachers, farmers, soldiers and workers. The Workers' Party of Ethiopia and the elected independents worked together to advance the socialist cause within the PDRE and were able to represent every aspect of Ethiopian life. Critics often slander the PDRE, bringing up the lack of opposition to denounce the socialist state. In a 1986 interview, General Secretary of the Workers' Party of Ethiopia, Mengistu Haile-Mariam, responded, quote, "We do not believe that there is a single exclusive law or formula governing developments in this respect. It is possible to have one or more parties in a country depending on its specific conditions and circumstances. The true measure of democracy and of the sovereignty of the people cannot be gauged by the number of parties, one or more." End quote. Democracy wasn't just at a local or national level. Mass organisations played a key and important role in Ethiopia's socialist democracy. Organisations like the Revolutionary Ethiopian Youth Association to represent the youth, the Revolutionary Ethiopian Women's Association to represent engaged women, and the All Ethiopian Trade Union to represent the country's workers, all played vital roles. Whilst not holding any seats, these organisations worked closely with the National Shengo to forward the socialist cause. The unanswered question still remains: how do Ethiopians get elected to the National Shengo? Well, of course, through an election, with the first and last election being held on the 14th of June 1987, with an election to be held every 5 years. Elections were held at every level, local, regional and national. In the general election, voter turnout was over 90%, a sign of active public engagement, not apathy. Candidates were vetted not for their wealth or media campaign, but for their service to the people. They were evaluated based on the collective decision making in public meetings. The candidates were chosen by the party or nominated by party members, which would then be followed by extensive debate where locals and party members could have their voices heard. These meetings were a chance to participate in democratic centralism and decide which candidate the people would most like to run. 40 independents were elected, with some of them being put forward by or were members of the mass organisations within the country, showing the system was not monolithic but flexible. The focus was always on class background, revolutionary dedication and popular trust, not party membership alone. In this system, democracy wasn't reduced to casting a ballot every few years. It meant shaping your community daily as a worker, a farmer, a mother and a soldier. The voter turnout shows how eager Ethiopians were to engage in politics through voting, debate and democratic centralism. The 12,981,957 votes the Workers' Party of Ethiopia had in the election was in stark contrast to the party's commonly accepted 500,000 membership figure. This shows that the majority of Ethiopians were not just blindly following the party, but instead motivated to build socialism and show a continued commitment to the socialist cause. The system wasn't without its faults, however, as it faced immense challenges both politically and economically. Where the PDRE sought to establish a socialist democracy through the National Shengo and mass organisations, these institutions struggled to maintain effective dialogue towards the end of the Republic's lifespan. External conflicts and internal insurgencies, driven by nationalist groups seeking to divide the nation, further strained the democratic process. These insurgents, rather than working within the structure of socialist governance, chose armed resistance, undermining the unity that the PDRE aimed to build. As war intensified, discussions between the government and mass organisations weakened, making it increasingly difficult to coordinate national policies and maintain stability. Yet despite these pressures, the PDRE remained committed to its vision of a strong, socialist Ethiopia, resisting both internal division and external interference. In conclusion, socialist democracy depends not just on elections, but on the people's active participation in shaping their society every day. Ethiopia's revolutionary democracy was never just about casting ballots every few years. It was about land for the farmer, housing for the worker, literacy for the youth and public ownership for all. This unity of the masses was the driving force behind Ethiopia's socialist project, proving that real power could belong to the people. But history also teaches us that when this unity falters, the bond between the people and the state weakens. It was socialism, African, proud and unyielding, and for millions, the People's Democratic Republic of Ethiopia was not a bourgeois dictatorship, but a dictatorship of the proletariat, a promise that the farmer mattered, that the youth had a future, that imperialism could be defeated, and that power, real power, could truly belong to the people. Thank you, comrades.